on Scoreline, a transfer deadline day special. Alexander Isak, will he finally get that move from Newcastle to Liverpool? He's the headline story. Gigi Donnarumma, he needs to be moved to Manchester. Is it United or is it City? Both teams need a keeper. Is it blue or is it red? We'll give you the latest there. And Nico Jackson, my man's been stuck in Germany for days, wondering who he's going to play for. Is he going back to Chelsea or is he staying in Munich? All that and more coming up. What's up, everybody? Great to have you here. Welcome to Scoreline Transfer Deadline Day Special, brought to you by Zillow, agents, tours, loans, and homes. We're going four wide. Stefan Fasaro back there, J.D. Dyer, Nico Cantor, who now is a fashionista, it seems, as you were breaking down this French team coming into there.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but I'm getting there.
He's getting there. He's working. I'm Dalek Cup. It's going to be a great 2 hours. We got you for 2 hours. 1 hour getting to the final, the end of the transfer deadline, where it doesn't just close. It has to slam shut the door, contractually obligated. In the last hour, we will wrap up everything that happened. We've got correspondents all over Europe breaking it all down for us. Let's start with the latest headlines through today. Now, Alexander Isak leads that without a doubt. He is making that move, it seems, from Newcastle to Liverpool for a English record, $176 million transfer fee. This is all reported. It is not finalized as of yet. The big story, though, just the last few minutes, Mark Gahey, the center back from Crystal Palace, it seemed like he would be joining Isak and Liverpool. There are some questions now about Palace. This move is in jeopardy because the Palace replacement they wanted at center back may not be moving, so there are some conversations here. We'll get later information on this from our correspondents on the ground. Nico Jackson, he is set to make that move from Chelsea to Bayern. Remember, because of the Liam Delap injury at Chelsea, they kind of pulled back on it on Saturday. This is going to go through reportedly. Anthony is going to go to Real Betis. The move will become permanent from Manchester United. He was on loan there last year, did a great job. $70 million loss, though, and Man United is taking in that deal. And Gigi Donnarumma, it is blue. He is going to go to Manchester City and be their keeper, as Ederson is also moving on. All right, let's get to this Liverpool situation here. First and foremost, and Nico, I'll start with you. When you had the Isak situation, it seemed like we were building into the show, like, okay, it's Isak, we got the Gahey replacement at defense, you got your offense, you got your defense. What do you make of it now, given the situation that Gahey may not go?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a very strong transfer window for Liverpool. If the Isak deal ends up going through, which all reports and all signs indicate that it's going to happen, you end up breaking the British transfer record twice in one window. Yeah. What more can you ask for? Like, Mark Gahey would be just adding and reinforcing a better transfer window than it is already. Having Isak makes Liverpool the clear favorite to win the Prem. And it puts Liverpool in an echelon of teams alongside with like Real Madrid and PSG as like a European super team, basically, because you look at one by one and almost every single player is a star, a very, very strong player. So Liverpool jumps, in my opinion, a certain category into a different tier of team in Europe.
I couldn't agree more. I think they're so spoiled. I really do. To break the British transfer record, not once, but twice.
They're going to be over $500 million spent by the time the thing is done.
Look, this is not going to be a joke. Playing this Liverpool team in terms of the depth, the quality, the experience they have now, and the proven winners they're going to have riddled within this team. This team is serious business. They are no joke to be sneezed at whatsoever. And I was saying before Alexander Isak came in, it was an incredible window for them, because you've seen the way that Ekitike has hit the ground running, loving what I'm seeing from Florian Wirtz, no matter what the criticism is in terms of adapting to this new system. But when you now start adding arguably England's best defender to this mix, wow. I don't even know what, I'm running out of superlatives what Liverpool could possibly do. $600 million is a lot of money to spend, but it looks like it's money well spent now.
And it's also, you have to credit them as well, because they win the Premier League, they have a decent season in Europe, and still they realize if they want to go and take that next step, they needed to have a window like this. They needed to go out and spend. The team that they had last year was good enough to win the Prem in a year where a lot of the teams were down. A lot of the teams, Manchester City, had won all of these Premier League titles and weren't anywhere near it last year. Arsenal gave them that opportunity as well, so it was good. I'll say this, though. The Mark Gahey situation right now, it was a fantastic window regardless. If they're not able to get Gahey across the line, that is their biggest concern right now, is defensively. We saw that in the first two games. They were much better against Arsenal, but Konate goes down injured in that game. Not much depth, quality depth, past Van Dijk and Konate in that back line. The midfield also, with their change in formation, only having two in the midfield now, does make them a little bit more vulnerable to a counterattack, which we saw in the first 2 weeks. I think that Gahey deal needs to happen for Liverpool to feel for Liverpool fans to feel extremely confident in that back line going forward in every single competition this year.
I think, though, Konate and Van Dijk are a good enough partnership. I understand if you're a Liverpool fan, you're looking at the first 3 games, and you're asking a lot of questions about the positional play of Konate.
Yes.
But there were a couple of moments in the Arsenal game that one-on-one he actually looked pretty good. It's not like he doesn't know how to do it. They put together a Premier League winning season together alongside Van Dijk. It would only behoove him if he had a little bit of competition in his position and quality, like you said, with Mark Gay. And then going back to the fact that, sure, they won the Premier League with the team that they already had. But if you want to level up and compete with PSG, who's put together a super team, sure, maybe perhaps Barcelona, who has registering problems every single window, but like a Real Madrid, Manchester City, this is where Liverpool levels up. I go back, I remember that transfer window where they got Alisson and Van Dijk in the same transfer window. They broke the record for most expensive goalkeeper, and then they broke the record for most expensive defender in English history, I believe.
That was in January as well, because they couldn't get that done in the summer, and they went in January.
And then you felt like Liverpool took a serious step into a certain narrative about competing not only in Europe, not only in England, but in Europe as well. And this feels like almost like a 2.0 version of that with the window that they put together.
When you're having to squeeze players like Szoboszlai into your squad as a makeshift right back, who's made that position look really easy over the last couple of games.
The Hungarian Federico Valverde.
That shows you the quality that is riddled throughout this team, because we haven't got Jeremy Frimpong on here. We could list all the players. Ekitike, who we just spoke about, who's hit the ground running from the beginning, can't find himself in this squad. Like, that tells you about the quality that is through this team. I tell you what it does tell me, though. This is very much Arne Slot's team now. There's no more confusion as to, oh, I've inherited this, and there's ramifications for players that were here previously, and am I still just living off the coattails and the quality that Klopp had developed here? No, this is your team. You spend $600 million, this is your squad. And you're not just saying I want to compete in the Premier League, you're saying I want to compete across Europe.
Now, the 2 biggest spenders in this window were Arsenal and Liverpool. We just saw them play yesterday. So we're up here giving them their flowers. You said Liverpool's the favorite right now. By the bookies, yesterday was basically a dead heat. BetMGM was plus 175 for each team to win the Premier League title. Now, it's gone a little bit more to Liverpool. The window, I think some of these moves going through, and the fact that they took all 3 points. So I ask you, who is the favorite in your mind? Because you're giving them all their love, but that game was tight, and it took a Szoboszlai wonder goal to separate them at Anfield.
I'm going to give the caveat first, which is I think Arsenal should get a lot more respect for what they did. Going into, I think, what's going to be the most challenging game across the 38 games this season, without 3 of their key players in terms of Odegaard not being fit to start, Eze just integrating into the team, and of course Bukayo Saka's absence. That performance yesterday is what I expected from a team that I felt like wanted to go to Anfield and be together, show a collectiveness, and also play to your strengths. What is your strengths? It's a defensive compatibility. We've seen it all season. We've been talking about Arsenal across Europe. How good are they defensively? Well, they proved it for, let's say, 90 minutes yesterday, and it pretty much took an excellent moment of quality from Dominic Szoboszlai to really pretty much separate the 2 teams. That could happen in any game. It doesn't matter what level you're talking about, Real Madrid versus Barcelona, Inter versus AC. If you have one moment of quality, and Arteta alluded to it, it was either going to be a mistake.
So who's the favorite?
Let's say if you're throwing the shekels, are we going Arsenal or are we going Liverpool?
It depends on what your preference is.
No, give me your value.
I'm
plus 188, plus 130.
It depends on what your preference is. If you think that defense wins championships, then Arsenal's your favourite. If you think that team that scored 86 goals last year and have added to the firepower and added the best number 9 in the country is what you want, then Liverpool are your favourite.
Well, you talk about defense winning championships. They're about to sign Mark Gay, and they literally got another right back. They got another left back that's still competing with a top quality left back in Andy Robertson, and they have the best defender in the world. So if you're talking about defense wins championships, I think you need to give Liverpool a little bit of credit here too.
No,
because against Arsenal, they actually they're the ones that walked away with a clean sheet on Sunday.
That is true, but I'm going off what we've seen in terms of proven and recognition and also reputation. And if we're going to compare the 2 back fours, you have to try and say Arsenal are ahead of Liverpool right now because of the relationship between that back 4.
Sure.
All 8 of those defenders can come in and understand their role in a Mikel Arteta system. You can't say that right now. What we've seen so far in this slot team is, yes, they have great ability going forward. Yes, they have great interchangeable. Yes, we know they're going to score so many goals. But there is gaps.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of gaps for Arsenal and Liverpool. The three games that both teams put together, there are several questions if you want to create this outlook picture going forward, because I'm not convinced by Arsenal yet. I'm not convinced either from Liverpool. And Liverpool's top of the table, 3 wins from 3. And I'm not too sure that not that I'm not too sure. I'm convinced that these weren't great performances. They were really tested by Newcastle. They were the worst team in that Newcastle game. They were really tested by Bournemouth. And then what we saw
man in
between
Newcastle too, obviously. Up a man in Newcastle.
Up a man. And then again against Arsenal, it was a pretty poor football game all around. It was a physical, dirty game of football.
It was a Mikel Arteta game.
Yeah, but he ended up losing. And the thing is,
right? Wanted to do that. I know he wanted to do that.
He's not wrong though, because you talk about Arteta. If you want to criticize Arteta, we can criticize him on saying that he didn't really go for the game. He was trying to not lose the game, not trying to go out and win the game.
And at the end of the day, if you want to choose a favorite, there's certain things that Liverpool brings to the table in a season that is 3 games in. They haven't been their best, and they've managed to win, which is experience. And even playing poor football, Liverpool can bring to the table a certain defensive solitude, which I believe that they have in Virgil van Dijk. They have a decently deep midfield. Once maybe their right back gets fit, they have Szoboszlai in there, and Gravenberch and McAllister, and Szoboszlai is a strong midfield. And then the attack kind of takes care of itself. But on top of that, they know how to win games that are ugly, that perhaps shouldn't even go their way, because against Bournemouth that was the case, and against Arsenal that was the case. Liverpool really didn't have any business winning that game, but a small bit of quality and experience ended up shifting the game in their favor.
Because you still got to take into consideration one factor, which is going to take time for Guehi, Kerkez, Frimpong and Van Dijk to understand each other's games. That's really, in terms of when you combining that with Alisson, that's the point in terms of Liverpool. Defensive stability is not just built on, oh, these great players all coming together. It's also built on relationship.
Without a doubt.
You know that. So
Without
it's built on relationship. There's a relationship that's been developed in that Arsenal back four over the last 12 to 18 months. So they have an understanding of each other's game. Liverpool haven't developed that yet.
Let me ask you about the offensive side of things, because Isak is the deal that seems like it's definitely going to go through. Now, Florian Wirtz has taken a lot of stick, and he's trying to find his way, and he's like another 9-figure transfer fee. If Isak comes into this from the same thing we're talking about, from acclimating in, do you see this being a challenge at all?
I mean, yeah, it'll be a challenge at first, right? I think that there's no question, especially, I think the challenge is more on Arne Slot, of having to figure out exactly how to deploy all these players. Iketika has been the best signing so far for Liverpool in this short season, in these first 3 games. Is he going to go to the bench? I don't think he's going to go to the bench right away. Is he going to move out to the left, where Gakpo has been playing well? So I think there's a lot to figure out still. But the quality is there. The talent is there. The proven goal-scoring ability from Alexander Isak is without question. And in the Premier League, he knows how to do it. So he's going to obviously go into that team. It's a matter of when and how.
And it's the balance. I think one of your main concerns is getting Florian Wirtz going.
Yes.
Who has not been up to the mark for his price tag, for the player that he was at Bayer Leverkusen, fitting into this attack. And that also falls on Arne Slot. And then, like you say, JD, after that, the next thing is defensively have that cohesion to be able to not just see out 3 games and perhaps being the worst team in those. It's seeing out over an entire season. But if there's a winning mentality, I think it's brewing at Liverpool. It's been like that. So despite the rocky start, if you will, if you want to label it and characterize it as that, Liverpool have a lot to look forward to, because they're putting together a super team.
They are. There's no two ways about it. And what I feel like is not being given enough credit for in terms of their planning is the African Cup of Nations is still this year. We've taken all of that responsibility of Mo Salah and said, we had 3 players here who, while you're away representing your country and probably going far in that tournament, don't worry about it. We've got the fort right here. Anfield will be fine. And I think Liverpool understand that, and they also recognise his age and his responsibility and just the way that he's carried that team over the last decade. There's no more solo in terms of Mo Salah. It's now a team.
And to add to that, the business that they did in previous windows in order to allow their club to break the British record twice in 1 window must be said, because not a lot of clubs can conduct that type of business to then suddenly just destroy the piggy bank.
Twice. And they've been able to get guys out the door, to your point, to do that, to have the funds to be able to stay within the rules, at least we think, for right now. You good?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. One of the best businesses, if the Mark Guehi deal does go through, they sold Jarell Kwanzaa for £1 million less than they're buying Mark Guehi, an England international who's a starter for England now at that centre-back position. Yeah. That's fantastic business.
It's incredible. I don't know how they've done that.
Yeah, Arsenal hasn't. We'll see. We'll see if they're moving anybody out here in the next hour. They need to make some money. We'll figure that out. But first, we're going to go to Germany. Rafa Honigstein joins us from Germany to give us all the latest from the Bundesliga.
club still hoping to sell rather than to buy, which explains why things are slightly later than usual at this point, especially for a league that likes to do its business early.
Pacing, Upamecano in real trouble. Marmouche with the pass, Ekitike, can he score? Yes, he can! This is unbelievable!
It comes to Andrich, blocked. Now Frimpong! They have one back. Another fight back by Frimpong. Back here to Robert Andrich for Florian Wirtz. And Wirtz, oh my goodness!
Voltemada, here they come. Voltemada makes it 3-3!
It's a long draw back as well. Sesh goes away, the goalkeeper's come off his line, and he's left an open goal! Space for Vermeeren, and now Xavi. It's Xavi! With a work of art!
Welcome to Scoreline, brought to you by Zillow. All those players you just saw, it's a lot of talent, but a lot of that's going to England. Here are guys coming into the Bundesliga as we focus in. Luis Diaz came over from Liverpool, had a great start so far to the season for Bayern. Jarell Kwanzaa, we just talked about the great business that was for Liverpool, selling him to Leverkusen. And Malik Tillman, U.S. international, joining Leverkusen as well. Some of the key incoming transfers and some of the outgoing. You just saw a number of these guys outside of Kingsley Coman, who's going to Saudi, Florian Wirtz to Liverpool, and you see Voltemada, Šeško, and Ekitike all going to the Premier League. Look at the latest news going on. The Nico Jackson situation is very interesting. He was in Munich, on Saturday when Liam Delap went down for Chelsea. There were some issues if he would go or if he would stay. We'll get the latest on that in a second. Piero Hincapié joining Arsenal is another big deal coming from the Bundesliga to London. Let's bring in our guy, Raphael Honigstein, to break it all down and give us the latest. And we're going to begin, Rafa, with that news with Nico Jackson. That situation was interesting to say the least as Chelsea and Bayern were going back and forth and he was stuck in Munich. What is the latest?
The latest is that this deal is going ahead. Bayern have agreed with Chelsea to structure the deal in a way that they can both justify it. And on Bayern's terms, they were only allowed to do a loan after the supervisory board put their foot down. So the deal is still framed as a loan, but it is with an obligation to buy that kicks in if certain parameters are fulfilled. This is mostly down to number of games. And I haven't seen the actual agreement, but my understanding is that they are framed in a way that it's probably not probable that this will definitely kick in. So it leaves some room for maneuver for Bayern to still pull out if he isn't a big success in Munich.
Rafa, this feels a bit left-wing in terms of going in this direction. Talk about a managerial decision on deadline day, but Erik ten Hag has naturally grabbed the headlines once again. What can you tell us about his dismissal now from the Bayer Leverkusen position?
Yeah, it's a record dismissal. No one in the Bundesliga has ever taken over in the summer and then been gone after 2 match days. And that is, of course, not the kind of statistic that Erik ten Hag wanted to get at Leverkusen. The problem was both the results and the performances and the overall sort of chemistry, if you will, was not right. And Leverkusen, to their credit, I think you have to say, realized that this is not going to go heading in the right direction and we better pull the plug now than continue on a path that doesn't look promising. They've been fairly circumspect. They haven't openly criticized ten Hag. You have to read between the lines of some of the statements and some of the things coming out. But the bottom line is they didn't feel that he was able to give a wholly newly put together squad a clear sense of direction. I think the communication wasn't quite what they expected. The communication between themselves, the manager and the people on above him, was a little bit fraught with politics. And they just lost trust in him. I think listening to the players, they also weren't that keen. And in German, you say, besser ein Ende mit Schrecken als ein Schrecken ohne Ende. Translates as you better finish with a big awfulness than having an awfulness that is interminable. So they opted for the first one.
You had that translation.
I was locked in. I was going to give it for us, Rafa. I was right there.
That translation.
The 3-1, you're up 2 against Werder Bremen, and then you help a man and you draw that game. That kind of was not a good way to go out. Let's talk more about Bremen, though, because Victor Boniface was trying to make a move to AC Milan. It seems like Bremen is going to be the place to go. Do you think this is going to be a good move for both player and club?
It's a little bit surprising that Leverkusen would let him go on loan. I mean, he was so close to going to Milan. It fell through on his medical. That didn't satisfy the Italians. I understand that Bremen have also conducted their own medical, and it seems to be okay. So it is still a bit surprising that you would, if you're Leverkusen, give away a player like that when you have Champions League, and also considering how well he's done for you. So good move for Werder. For Leverkusen, unless we don't know the full story, interesting, shall we say. Interesting one.
Let's stay in Leverkusen for a second, because I feel like they've set themselves almost an incredible target because of course, their invincible seasons and the history they've had most recently. But where do they go from here? Because there's been so much change in and out of that club. So what do you expect from them this season?
Well, first of all, they have to find a new manager, and that's, of course, going to take over the next couple of days or so. The names that are being bandied about are interesting as well, I would say. Roger Schmidt is a name that's mentioned quite a lot. He's back from his time in China, where he earned a lot of money. He can now really decide whether he actually wants to go into coaching or not. Back into coaching, but he was at Leverkusen before, so that could be an interesting fit. One or two others, which I am yet to see any firm evidence that their names are really linked, but that's got to be number one. And of course, as you mentioned, they've had such a massive turnover. Effectively, the invincible team is gone, bar a couple of players. And that's going to be a tall order for anyone coming in. And they'll have to be very careful that it's going to be better fit than Ten Hag.
Rafa, we'll wrap up with this. I mean, we showed that video coming in, whether it was Wirtz, Ekitike, Šeško, Simons, all these young stars are leaving the Bundesliga, and those four in particular are all going to the Premier League. Is there a level of concern within the league that these young players and young stars are leaving the league?
Yes and no. Of course, you would love to have them a little bit longer. They are important players. They enhance the quality in the league. We'd also still have to have the likes of Erling Haaland and Szoboszlai and all these guys. There's tons of them which have gone in recent years. But of course, that money is welcome money, and it makes the league work in to a certain extent. It helps the league buy the next Ekitike and the next Simmons. And as long as you have this way out to make huge marks up by developing players for a couple of years, it's great. What's different, and I'm not sure it's going to work out, is that these players used to go when they were 25, 26. Now they go when they're 22. The expectation is huge, and when they don't function immediately, like Šeško, like Wirtz, people are saying, oh, these guys are not ready. So I'm a bit worried that in terms of their own development, I would have liked to see them stay a little bit longer, become slightly more mature, slightly more rounded, and then go in the way that a Kevin De Bruyne went, in the way that a Ballack went, when they were just a little bit more developed in their personality as well as their playing career. But that's the way it is. The Bundesliga has to adjust, and I'm sure they'll spend the money well.
Yeah, more KDBs, less maybe Timo Werner's. We're kind of seeing the other side of that right now. Rafa, appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Timo getting strays.
I'm sorry, bro. I think it's kind of what we're talking about right there. All right, we come back. Marco Messina joins us to break down everything in the Serie A. Just 30 minutes left for the transfer window.
now 32 years of age, back in Serie A after what can best be described as a frustrating loan spell out of Galatasaray.
Luka Modric has arrived ahead of his long-awaited move to AC Milan.
He's the kind of player who is gritty. He'll certainly be one to watch.
Kevin De Bruyne leaving Manchester City and signing for Napoli. De Bruyne bends it in, and it's gone all the way in. It's a debut goal for Napoli's new superstar, Kevin De Bruyne.
Welcome back to our Golazo Network Transfer Deadline Day show, and we're going to Italy. A busy summer of ingoings and outgoings, of course, headlined by Kevin De Bruyne joining Napoli, the champions, on a free transfer from Manchester City. Luka Modric goes to AC Milan, the grizzled veteran. Leon Bailey joins Roma on loan with an option to buy from Aston Villa. Jonathan David, the Canadian international, heads to Juventus, and Luis Enrique joins Inter Milan from Marseille. Outgoings, some interesting ones. Victor Osimhen goes to Galatasaray. Interesting that was the only club in for him at this point. Matteo Retegui goes to the Saudi League. Timo Weah to Marseille. Tijani Reinders to Manchester City from AC Milan. $63 million transfer. And of course, Dan Ndoye goes to Nottingham Forest. He's gotten off to a good start after his transfer from Bologna. And some transfer deadline day moves that we're expecting to see. We already saw Jamie Vardy set to join Cremonese. Yunus Musa just became official to Atalanta. Adrien Rabiot, we're going to talk about that in just a second, joining AC Milan from Marseille. Manuel Akanji to Inter Milan. This just happening just this morning on a move from Manchester City. And Rasmus Højlund is set to join the champions Napoli on loan from Manchester United. So to break it all down, we bring in our Serie A analyst, Marco Messina. Marco, it is deadline day, my man. Are you happy? Are you excited? Do you live transfer deadline day like some of the others, or maybe some other ones that are poo-pooing on the whole transfer deadline day?
Honestly, usually I don't get that excited, but there's something about this year that I've really liked. Maybe it's this new show that you guys have, that you're live for this final hour that's got me excited, or maybe it was the Cremonese fans who had tattoos of Jamie Vardy on their body and then made him sign it. I never expected to see that, but it's awesome. And I think overall, considering the lack of spending in Serie A, it wasn't a bad transfer market at all for us.
I mean, you mentioned Cremonese, Marco. After Baschirotto's goal and celebration, and then Jamie Vardy, I think I found my team in Serie A, by the way.
Look at that.
Hey, why'd your muscles get smaller?
All right, Marco, let's start breaking some of this down. Manuel Akanji going to Inter Milan after we saw their loss yesterday at the Giuseppe Meazza. What do you think about this signing? Is this enough? A 30-year-old center back that wasn't getting much playing time with Manchester City. Is this the answer for Inter?
So I would say that it's a good move, and I would have been excited that they're getting a defender because Stefano, as we saw yesterday, breaking it down, Inter is lacking something in the back line. The problem is, for me, then they let Pavard go to Marseille. So it's kind of like a one-for-one swap. I think that they needed to get Akanji and keep Pavard. And when you look at the terms that Pavard is also leaving the club with a loan with option to buy, and he's also reducing his salary, you have to expect that something happened there. So I do think Akanji's good. I think he'll help in the back three. Inter has had a problem, again, as we saw yesterday, in their loss to Udinese in their debut game of the season at home at the Giuseppe Meazza. Their back line is just getting exposed. Inter want to play very quick and vertical and aggressive. That means losing passes. So they need some, not experience, but some speed in their back line. So it could be a good move, but I don't like that Pavard went out on the other end.
Marco, let's dive deeper into the strong potential of Adrien Rabiot going to Milan. And I kid you not, guys, I swear that the next game for Milan is against Bologna. And guess who's on Bologna? Jonathan Rowe, his former teammate at Marseille, with which he got into the scuffle in the Marseille locker room that set off this whole drama. How does Adrien Rabiot help out Milan in their midfield?
It's the most Serie A thing of all time, by the way. I have my popcorn ready. Sunday, September 14th. It's already circled on my calendar. It couldn't have worked out any better than that. But I think that when you look at Rabiot and why he's getting this move to Milan, yes, it is because of this fight that you just mentioned. Zebbi tried to men things and keep him at the club. It didn't work out. But even before that, Max Allegri, who's basically his footballing dad at this point because he's obsessed with Rabiot wherever he's been, whether it's been at Juventus or even at Milan when he was first there. He says that he calls him all the time, that he talks to him. And with Yashari getting his leg broken in training after a scuffle with Jimenez, they needed a midfielder. There was a lot of potential names being thrown around. Rabiot is a guy, and I think that management from Milan, where I don't think they've always given Allegri everything he wants, this is clearly the coach getting the player that he feels like he needs in that midfield three. I think that he can bring a lot to this Milan side. Is it a signing that gets me extremely excited? No, but the coach is getting what he wants, and I think that helped them.
The script is perfect. Of course, it's facing the team that has Rowe. They just got Rowe as well.
What are the odds?
I mean, just the script for Serie A, it's almost like it's been written already. Napoli, let's talk about the champions. They obviously had a fantastic summer with a lot of their signings. Lukaku goes down with a serious injury, so they have to go back into the market. Now it seems like Rasmus Højlund is on his way for Manchester United. And in fact, Aurelio De Laurentiis, the owner of Napoli, has just tweeted, Benvenuto Rasmus. So that's pretty official. If anyone's going to make it official, it's going to be De Laurentiis. What does Rasmus Højlund bring to Napoli? He has experience in Serie A, and we've seen a lot of players have success leaving the Premier League, specifically Manchester United, to going abroad and having success. So how big of a signing is this for Napoli?
By the way, that's a very Serie A thing. The president of the team, he has to tweet out before the club gets to do it. That's how we know. That's how we find out all of Napoli's transfers. It's just the way that it is. It's something that we've gotten used to. I think that it's not necessarily a thing of leaving Premier League and going to Serie A, which is the reason why I think Højlund to Napoli is a great move. Number one, Antonio Conte wants him. Number two, I think he brings a speed to Napoli's attack, which they don't have. Even Lorenzo Luca, who they brought into the team, that offers you a different profile in his first two games, has not looked great. So I love that Conte is getting his guy. Conte has a history, a track record, with making basically any player that he wants perform to the best of their ability. I don't fault Højlund for doing bad at Manchester United. He only scored 9 goals for Atalanta when they paid that record 75, 80 million euro transfer. He did not need to make that jump. He needed to be a youngster that's fostered and was allowed to make some mistakes. This 45 million transfer fee is, I think, more in line with the talent that he has. I think at Napoli, it's the perfect place for him to do it. As you mentioned, Lukaku is going to be out for who knows how long at this point. Maybe we could see him by January. And I think Højlund is going to be perfect. Think about it. He's got so much more service at this Napoli side than he will at Manchester United. You think of Kevin De Bruyne that's there, Scott McTominay, Anguissa, Noah Lang, Politano. He's going to be in dreamland. And I think that this is the perfect chance for him to finally break out and be that promising talent we saw just a few years back at Atalanta.
Marco, talk to me about Luka Hazmetovic from the Bosnian second division that Lecce has just. I can't even.
Not that good
with Marco anymore.
That was too easy.
All right, seriously, Ademola Lookman, is he staying? Is he going? What's the latest?
I mean, the counter says 22 minutes, and I haven't heard anything, so I don't think he's going. And it's Groundhog Day all over again. You remember last year that he did not come to training. He missed Atalanta's game in the Super Cup against Real Madrid. He wanted the move. He never got his move. Then there's this famous gentleman's agreement, which doesn't really exist in football, that they'll sell him in the following season. And Atalanta have this sort of rule, I'll put it in quotes, that they only want to sell one big talent every summer. Out of nowhere, this offer for Retegui came in from Saudi Arabia, the 70 million. You can't say no to that. So now Atalanta were put into a bad position. They said that they would sell Lookman, but they can't completely dismantle their team considering they're in Champions League football. Their season's already been off to a terrible start. They have 0 wins in their first 2 games. They tied Pisa and Parma. So they can't sell Lookman. There was this rumors that maybe Bayern Munich were going to come in and they were only offering a loan with option to buy, and Atalanta was not going to sell him unless they got 45 million guaranteed, which personally, I think a lot of teams slept on Lookman this transfer summer. I would have spent 50 million for him, for example, if I was Napoli, right? I would have done it. They didn't come to it. He's going to have to rejoin the team. They're going to have to work this out. It's not a great situation. He does have a different coach. It's no longer Gasperini. It's Juric. But is that much better? I don't think so.
Interesting, because it was Inter was in form, Bayern was in form. He really wants that move, but Atalanta just said, no, we can't let him go. Got all these years on his contract.
I had read that at one point even Galatasaray was thrown out an offer to get Ademola Lookman.
Yeah, it's going to be a long season, it seems like, for Ademola Lookman at Atalanta. Marco, the last one has nothing to do with Serie A, but it's the Italian number one, Gigi Donnarumma. He is now, looks like he is on his way to Manchester City after Luis Enrique really shocked the world, saying we're going to let him go after winning the Champions League and winning everything he could with Paris Saint-Germain. Do you like this move for Italy's number one?
It was a shock, and to my understanding, PSG has this thing that they don't want to have huge salaries anymore, right? That doesn't go in line with their strategy. And Donnarumma, in his renewal, he wanted an upgrade on his salary. He gets that with Manchester City with $15 million, and then there was this terrible fallout that he's not able to play the first games of the season. I've seen some takes about Donnarumma. I heard even Aaron West today saying that he doesn't think he's going to be good in this system. For me, you could look at them. You could show me any numbers that you want. You could say, oh, he's not good with his feet. Oh, he's not that great of a shot stopper. What I look at is that PSG would not have won the Champions League without Donnarumma. He's one of the most clutch players in the world. And Italy would not have won the Euros without Gigio Donnarumma. He simply brings you titles. It's going to be tough because I think even in Manchester City, seeing their last games, they still have issues. It's at the back that they have problems where they're going to be getting exposed. So he's going to be tested a lot. But I do like this move. I think that he had to go here. It's much better than going to a Manchester United, for example, the best goalkeeper in the world. And let's underline and circle that one more time. He was the best goalkeeper in the world last year. Cannot go and not play in Champions League football. For the Italian national team, we need him as well to be playing at the highest of level. So I wish him the best at Manchester City.
All right, we got just over 19 minutes to go in Serie A's transfer window. Marco, thanks for joining us, my man.
Anytime, boys.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Guillem Balaguer will be joining us to talk La Liga and all the transfer happenings in Spain.
Marcus Rashford, the first Englishman to play for Barcelona since Gary Lineker.
So I've always been a fan of watching, Barcelona play from a young age. It's going to be a joy for me to play here, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
Here's Eric Garcia. There's Rashford. 5-0. Special moment for Marcus Rashford.
New signings. Let's see what they are able to do.
The perfect ball across and slotted home by Julian Alvarez.
The trophies, the mentality, the demand of winning things here, the success of the club is, something that, it's hard to say no.
Buchanan, who's on a hat-trick. Buchanan, well, won't take anything away from him. It's a first hat-trick in La Liga EA Sports for the Canadian winger.
Welcome back to the Scoreline Transfer Deadline Day special presented by Zillow. Let's focus on La Liga. Their window closes at 5:59 p.m. Eastern time today. A little more time. Some of the incoming transfers are big, of course. Trent Alexander-Arnold coming from Liverpool. Barca doing some business. Marcus Rashford in. Joan Garcia had actually a big game in their draw yesterday. And Atletico Madrid continues to spend a bunch of money, not getting results. 1 point through the first 3 matches. Let's look at the outgoing transfers, some big ones. Luka Modric leaves, goes to AC Milan. Lucas Vazquez heading to Leverkusen, and 2 key players for their team, Zubamendi and Mosquera, now playing in North London with Arsenal. And some of the key headlines, Alexis Sanchez. Don't adjust your screens. Yes, Alexis Sanchez, 36 years old, playing for Sevilla, transfer from Udinese. Anthony going to make his deal permanent, played at Real Betis last year on loan from United, did a great job. Now that deal is worth $29 million. Canadian national Kyle Larin now joins Feyenoord from Mallorca for $9 million. Let's go to our La Liga insider, Guillaume Balaguer. Joins us from, are you in Versailles, Buckingham Palace? Where are you right now?
In the west wing of my house. I thought I would just broadcast from here today, if that's okay with you.
Very humble. Thank you very much, sir. Beautiful, beautiful background you have right there. Let's start with Anthony. This deal is interesting to say the least. Last year he performed very well for Betis. Do you think he's going to keep that going forward as it's now a permanent move?
Well, the whole thing is so interesting because something that I've never seen before, which is a club putting an offer in, being accepted, and then that same club, Betis, of course, trying to convince Manchester United, saying, "Oh, we retract the offer. We just don't have the money for it." And quite clearly, the intention was to push everyone, including the player, to reduce the price and the wages. So if that's been happening, then Anthony will have a massive effect for Betis. The plan, of course, is a 5-year deal that will just allow him to grow. He has found a place in the world that he's happy in after a very, very unhappy spell at Manchester United. And everybody expects Anthony to be the player that takes Betis to the next step. What we're seeing at the moment is a Betis that plays well, they're solid, but they lack something up front, and Anthony will be the difference.
Yeah, I'd be happy too if I got to move from rainy Manchester to sunny Sevilla.
Nice upgrade.
Yeah, Guillaume, let's talk Atletico Madrid, because they've reinforced like no other. In fact, I would say even a year ago, we were talking about one of their best transfer windows ever, and they've kind of followed it up after they came up agonizingly short in so many tournaments with an even stronger window. The Nico Gonzalez deal is official now at Atletico Madrid, the Argentine winger coming from Juventus, but the performances haven't followed suit. It's Atletico Madrid's worst start in the Cholo Simeone era to a La Liga season. What do we make all of this about Atletico putting together this team, but to start the campaign, the results haven't followed?
Imagine if you spend $350 million at Atletico Madrid with the intention of not just being third, as the owner of Atletico Madrid, Miguel Angel Gil, has said, basically implying that the third is not enough, that they should go for bigger things. Well, imagine you've spent $350 million and the manager has not got the right key. You don't see the team performing like a unit. I know that when you sign the likes of Cardoso, Hanco, Alex Baena, Nico Gonzalez now, obviously hasn't arrived. It'll be a loan deal with the obligation to buy.
Raspadori, Ruggeri, Almada.
Yes. all that suggests that, number one, there is a new way for Atletico Madrid to face games, which is about dominating, putting pressure high, being dynamic, but no more of just waiting, being reactive, if you like. But imagine you do that and the manager's hasn't got a clear idea how to make that work. The last two seasons, they had 17 and 19 points away from the top at the end of the season. Not good enough. And at the moment, they don't look good either. Early days, of course. But what Atletico Madrid is asking, this is not the fans, this is the club itself, to Simeone, is like, you know what, it's time to actually do much better than just the minimum being third, of course, in terms of money invested, in terms of quality of the squad, that should be the minimum. But Simeone looked a little bit confused, and even though I think they actually scored the first goal in the 3 games they played, they just haven't managed to get the results that they want, and it's going to be a tough season if he doesn't turn things around.
Yeah, in short order, to say the least. Let's talk Barcelona, the last year's champions. Their financial issues are well documented. Now, they got Rashford in, and partially maybe because Marc-Andre Ter Stegen got surgery, they had the opportunity to do that. Do you think this is sustainable, to have this financial situation every window where they can't just register and can't go out and spend money? Is this sustainable for them to maintain top of the table in the Liga and top of the Champions League, potentially without the dollars?
It's not logic, is it? It's not logic at all. And is it sustainable? If you ask me, I'll say no. You ask Laporta, yes, of course it is. I'll find a way. And he always seemed to find a way. So what you have to say is that at the moment, the squad has not reduced the quality dramatically, but the Fermin situation, it's typical of this Barcelona. Fermin didn't want to go to Chelsea. Chelsea shown interest by ringing his agent. That's the midfielder of Barcelona, of course. And from the moment Barcelona heard that Chelsea were interested, a campaign started in the media to tell minute by minute what was happening, including a lot of things that were not happening, like Chelsea putting big offers, Barcelona saying, no, we want more money. None of that was happening. And in the background of it, it was certainly a club that wouldn't have cried if Fermin had gone for 60 or 70 million euros, because he would have sorted many problems. At the moment, Fermin stays. The squad remains strong, as you say, with John Garcia coming in, and he was extraordinary against Rayo. He's perhaps the best goalkeeper in Spain. This is a team that has got at least the ambition to compete for absolutely everything. But let me just take you out to the press conference of Hansi Flick yesterday, where he said egos could destroy the team. So now that you've got the players, similar players to last season, and as Johan Cruyff used to say, winning is one thing, winning after winning, it's a lot harder. So we'll see how all that comes out.
Yeah, by the way, Anthony, official just moments ago, as for Real Betis Balompié. Talking about Barcelona, I'm thinking a couple of signings outward that kind of went under the radar, and I'm thinking Íñigo Martínez, how much of a leader he was to the backline and how big of a miss he's going to be in the organization of that backline. I was watching the game yesterday against Rayo Vallecano, and I'm looking at Isi Palamón, one of the attackers for Rayo, taking up that space, and Rayo really insisting on beating that Barcelona high line. It was pretty impressive, and I think Íñigo Martínez sorts a little bit out on that back line. But now that he's gone, I just have a couple bit more questions to see how they move forward. But let's move it on over to Real Madrid and their transfer window. How would you rate it overall, and how much expectation do you think they have to deliver on absolutely every single front?
When you've got Mbappé, you think that you can win everything. When you've got a Vinicius that now is a little bit upset because he doesn't start every game, and yet when he comes out, he makes a difference, then you have to be candidate for absolutely everything. My problem with this Real Madrid, with a Hodgson that is making the centre-back pairing, whoever it is, with Militao or Rudiger, solid, yes, but we're also in the style that Xabi Alonso wants. So all that is sorted. At the back, I think they sorted. Courtois, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Up front, I think they sorted. In the middle, I'm not seeing how Xabi Alonso can get a performance of Real Madrid that can beat anybody, the Arsenals or the Bayern Munich or the whatever, all the big guns. Because at the moment, what we're seeing is Real Madrid still being saved by the individuals. Early days, they only had a 1 week pre-season. It's just the the type of players that he's got in the middle, I'm not sure that he will work to dominate games constantly. Valverde is box to box, isn't it? Tchouaméni dropping deep as a centre back and sometimes not dominating games either. Arda Güler, is it a little bit too light? He's pushing him forward, but gaps in the middle that perhaps Bellingham, who's also more a forward than a midfielder, cannot fill. That is the imbalance of Real Madrid, but certainly the market is closed, has been closed for a while for them since the moment that Ceballos didn't go to Olympique de Marseille. Everybody stays put, they're not getting anybody else, and that means that what we've seen is what they're going to have to use to win everything. It's a bit of an experiment to give Real Madrid to a manager that will want structure first, but one fascinating experiment to follow up.
Yeah, one benefit for sure for Madrid is their schedule not that challenging in the early onset, so they have some time to kind of bed in. Guillem, appreciate your time. Enjoy, I don't know, late dinner, whatever you got going on in the castle. Thanks, man.
Tea and biscuits now.
There you go. Tea and biscuits for the king. All right, we come back. The transfer window is closing in England. Jeff Shreve joins us from over there just minutes away.
survival of the fittest. Turn it up a level, all I know is go and get it. Tell the gang it's game time, baby. We ain't running scrimmage. Let me see who got that dog in them. We all in it. Soon as they pass me the ball, I'ma get the dog in them. Ballin' heavy with the squad. We got them forfeiting full court when we press. Some highlights on Sports Center. Open up the lane. Suckers don't stand a chance round here. Hands up, cause we got it hands down.
Pulls it back. Joao Pedro. Another summer signing scores his first goal at the bridge for Chelsea.
And tell them this is my house, homie. Naming lights, think we light, turn your lights out, homie. Whole team got the wave, don't get wiped out, homie. Keep thinking this a game, you gon'
coming inside, he shoots and he scores! Victor Gyökeres is off the mark in his Arsenal career.
Let them know they ain't taking none from me. Yeah, we going in and we going up. Going for the win, tell them ain't no screwing up. All we know is do it big, time to put them in the dust. Gotta show them what it is, gotta get it, it's a must.
And Reinders hits it into the back of the net. And the man who's had an eye for goal in Serie A has got an eye for goal in England.
When you going for the win, gotta go and get it. Who got it? We got 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 it.
That's some way to introduce yourself. And the Frenchman, Hugo Ekitike, makes his mark.
Livramento. He's found a left-footed cross. Up gets Murphy. Isak! They have won the Carabao Cup.
Transfer window is massive all over Europe. It's nowhere is it as big as the Premier League. Here are some of the incoming transfers this summer. Victor Gyökeres joins Arsenal. Liverpool, they spent a combined $263 million on Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz, and there's more coming, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Tijani Reinders joins Man City from Milan. Šeško goes to Manchester United from RB Leipzig. And of course, Eberechi Eze joins Arsenal. Joao Pedro joins Chelsea, both from inside the Premier League. Some of the biggest outgoing transfers this summer. Dean Huijsen joins Real Madrid from Bournemouth. Luis Diaz leaves Liverpool and heads to the German champions Bayern Munich. Darwin Nunez goes from Liverpool to the Saudi Pro League. Kevin De Bruyne to Napoli on a free transfer from Manchester City. And of course, Son goes from Tottenham to LAFC. Some notable transfer deadline day news stories that we're following today. Sen Lamens goes to Manchester United from Royal Antwerp. Harvey Elliott, after 6 years at Liverpool, heads to Aston Villa. Johan Vissa finally getting the move that he's been asking for since pretty much all summer to Newcastle from Brentford. Jadon Sancho set to join Aston Villa on loan from Manchester United. And Randall Colomuani set to join Spurs on loan from PSG. And now, everyone, the transfer deadline is shut. The window is shut. That is it. But of course, we will be updating you on all of these moves that are going to be trickling in here in the next few minutes. Guys, on August 26th, our Premier League correspondent Jeff Shreves, he had this to say about the entire Alexander Isak Liverpool-Newcastle saga.
This is the maddest I've ever known, this transfer window. We've still got at least a week to go. What will happen from here? I'm sure you've seen. There's talk of Brentford being interested in Max Bayer from Dortmund. Now, these things aren't fact, but I personally would be massively surprised if Liverpool come in with a huge bid for Isak, and then on the back of that, Newcastle come in with a huge bid for Wisa, and then Brentford have to have a huge bid for Bayer, and he would come in then. So I think we can judge that, Trella, in about a week's time as to what business they do.
And there he is, Jeff.
Man of his words.
Kind of saw this coming.
Well, 2 out of 3 wasn't bad, was it? But I don't think you need
little issues with your audio there, Jeff. He did call this. I mean, you saw this. It was going to be a domino effect of things, and he saw it coming. Where it was going to be, you had to wait for Isak. Isak had to wait for his move until Newcastle was able to get all their replacements in, and it would be a domino effect, and that's kind of how it played out, JD.
You know why? Because not to speak for Jeff, but he's seen so many windows in his lifetime. He knows that this is a domino effect. Full stop. Look, he's saying this is over. Yeah, Jeff, it is shut. Yeah, the window is closed. We know that apart. But the important thing is he's already called these type of things because he knows that transfer activities are built on a number of different factors. It isn't just in terms of the players, it isn't just in terms of the clubs, but replacements are the important thing that's always a factor.
Jeff, in terms of chaos, how would you rate this transfer window?
It's been mad, hasn't it? It's been mad, but it's been glorious as well. To be honest with you, I sort of kind of rolled back the years. For a long time, I got kind of a bit bored about transfer deadline day. There was a lot of hype and not a lot happening. But this time, the start of the window, and today's not finished as well. And to your point, JD, as well, yeah, the window is shut, but the deal sheets have got to go in. They've got to get over the line. We still don't know whether or not Mark Gay's gone to Liverpool. Honestly, there are so many mad deals still happening here. Yes, it is 7 o'clock here, but that isn't necessarily the end of the action. I can see failed signings, appeals, people going back on their word, and also players getting one last, if like, a really unexpected one under the radar. It's been absolutely crazy this window. Absolutely crazy. You've got to say the biggest winners, though, are Liverpool, you know, with the business that they've done. And I was looking at your graphics. Well, look at their sales as well. Yes. The players they've sold. They've done excellent business. We're still waiting to hear. Isak hasn't actually been officially announced, but I'd be very surprised if there's anything wrong there. It's the Mark Gay one, which is intriguing, because a couple of sources are saying there is no way that they are going to let him go for free next summer. Steve Parish has said that all along. They simply can't afford to let him go for nothing. 35 million. But Oliver Glasner, he's the coach, of course, he says he can't let him go. He won't sanction the move unless there are replacements. Now, we had Igor Julio from Brighton earlier on today. He was at Palace's training ground. Obviously not the same calibre of player as Mark Gay, but he was supposed to sign. That didn't happen. He hijacked across the town to West Ham, and he signed for West Ham. So a real state of flux at Palace. I still think this one will go through, which just underlines for me even more what a fantastic window Liverpool have had. And I would have to say, I mean, Isak's the headline story, isn't it? But the Newcastle United owners, they've just collapsed like a deck of cards, haven't they? All that talk, no, unless the deal is right, it has to be right, there has to be the right replacements, unless we get the sum of money we wanted. Total nonsense, just gone right out of the window. And, you know, you could look at the signings they've made, and it's really not been a good time for Eddie Howe and Newcastle United.
Definitely tough for Newcastle. Losing Isak was never going to be easy, whoever came in. The Gahey situation is interesting because you mentioned that it's still kind of up in the air whether it's going to be finalized. He already had a medical done, but then when everything happened with Palace as well, there's reports that Oliver Glasner would be willing to even leave the club if they sell Mark Gahey. There's just so much going on. I'm sure we'll be seeing exactly how that all kind of finalizes here in the last few minutes as they trickle in. But there's other clubs as well that have been doing a lot of business.
Jeff, I want to switch gears with you. I want to go to the Midlands real quick, because I think there's a club in terms of Aston Villa that's doing a little bit of deadline day business, and maybe it's going underneath the radar. But what do you think in terms of the picks up of Victor Lindelof, of course, who signed now, and the reports that Harvey Elliott and both Jadon Sancho are also going to sign on deadline day?
JD, I think you have to look at Villa as a special case, because do you remember that UEFA fine they got? And they can't afford, I think it's 60 million, they can't afford to lose more than. So their transfer dealings are extremely tightly controlled. They have to operate to certain budgets. That's why they had to sell Jacob Ramsey. That's why they are really hamstrung with the business that they can do. The Harvey Elliott deal is interesting. For instance, it's a loan. They wouldn't pay for him until next summer. 35 million is being quoted there. So I would have a great deal of, if you like, understanding or sympathy for Aston Villa. And if they get Harvey Elliott and Jadon Sancho over the line as part of this window, then I think they've done great business with one hand tied behind their back. The big mess there, though, of course, is Emi Martinez, because he didn't play the other night against Crystal Palace. He's gone to Manchester United. What has happened there? We can move on to Manchester United at some point. But Harvey Elliott, Premier League medal winner, a really good young player. Arne Slot said he would like to give him more minutes. It just wasn't possible. But now we're going to see Emi Martinez. Do you remember he did that kind of farewell lap of honour at the end of last season? I think it was Tottenham, was the home game. We all thought that was it. And we were a little bit surprised he was still there at the start of this season. Now, though, all collapsed, all gone.
I think Emi Martinez is surprised he's still there as well, in fairness. He probably have half booked a train ticket to Manchester, but
he might have been halfway there as well.
It doesn't always work out.
Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, it needs to get across the line to be done. Head back down to North London with Tottenham Hotspur, obviously having an interesting window as they were in for Deborah Chiese. Then that collapsed. He went to the other side of North London, which was kind of expected. Xavi Simons comes in, a good signing for Tottenham. And now, after a Solanke injury, Colomwani decides to take his talents over to Tottenham Hotspur. Interesting for them. What do you think about this signing after Juventus wasn't able to get him back into their squad this season? Tottenham jump in and get a striker that I think will be pretty useful for them.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stefano. I think it's a good signing. I think it's also perhaps it was given a little bit of extra impetus, not just by the failings of who Tottenham tried to go for and didn't get. But don't forget, Dominic Solanke sat the game out of the weekend. He's got a niggling injury So that possibly could be in the back of their minds. And I think they were looking for more firepower, even if Solanke is fully fit. Look, we know what this player can do. We know he is of the top draw. We know the calibre of player that he is. Juventus wanted him. There's no doubt about that. You know, he's a class act. So if he can settle at Tottenham and they can get the best out of him, absolutely, he's an excellent addition.
Jeff, I've only got one more question for you, which is, you've never been short of superlatives, so I need a superlative to describe the $3 billion that's been spent in this window. I mean, look, it's got its own place in the history books, but how would Jeff describe this summer activity?
Do you know what? I said it is crazy, but I'm no longer surprised at being surprised, if I can put it like that, because it's like it's a market. It's very much a buyer's market. And the buyer's market creates a seller's market. You see what I'm saying? Because, you know, the prices that are being paid and the contracts that are being offered are all a reflection of what everybody else wants. So the market makes itself. And we've been so quiet the last couple of years, then all of a sudden, boom. Look at Liverpool, the money they've spent in this transfer window. I think their total dealings, if you do their ins and outs, it's about £450 million, which is staggering, but it's good business and it's sensible business as well. And going back to the adage, you should always strengthen when you're strong, not when you're weak. So it's going to be interesting tomorrow as well. Perhaps you guys will do it tonight. Rankings. Who's had the best window and who's had the worst window in the Premier League? And I think it's been a frenetic period. I think there's been a lot of frantic phone calls and dealing left, right and centre. I think the managers will be glad of an international break so they can just take stock of what they've got and say, right, now we can start. Let's work with what we've got. And also as well, and I'll leave you with one question, JD.
Okay.
Where is Isak going to fit in? We know he's going to play at that sort of money, so who misses out in that front three?
Well, Mohamed Salah is a shoo-in. He's their best player, most important player. I think Cody Gakpo's kind of shown what he can do, and I think...
So, Ekitike then, who they paid 85 million for, he's not starting.
Hey, Jeff, how did Alexander do it? He did it like this, right? That's exactly how we did it. Just go and chill on the bench somewhere. That's what I'll tell him. Just go and chill on the bench. You keep it warm. There'll be enough games for everybody.
I'm sure...
Hey, great problem for Liverpool to have.
Right.
You know, because, you know, to have those players to call upon is keeping them all happy. I don't forget many years ago, I was talking to Arsene Wenger about a player. I said, well, you know, why do you want to sell him? Why do you want him to go? He says, he's a fantastic player. I love this boy. He gives everything. He's all heart. He's brilliant for team spirit. Wonderful. I said, why do you want to let him go? He said, he's all of those things when he's in the team. When he's not, no, thank you.
Jeff Shrews breaking down a historic transfer deadline day in England. Cheers, Jeff.
As always.
Cheers, guys.
The transfer window is shut, but there's still going to be deals that are going to be trickling in, that are going to be finalized. When we come back, we're going to be talking Ligue 1 and some of their transfer business on the day.
Meunier. Fernandez Pardo. Good ball into the middle. Olivier Giroud! He's done it! It is looking like an inspirational signing for Les Dogs. Look at Chevalier coming into the side for Luis Enrique. Chevalier was actually named the Liga goalkeeper of the season.
Clearly an emotional Paul Pogba, and no surprise, he hasn't played in 2 years. The big get for Ligue 1 as well, and for Monaco, this is a brand new front line that we're about to see. It's kind of exciting time.
Back here on Scoreline, transfer deadline day special brought to you by Zillow. And the window is closed now in France. We've passed 2 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock local time there. Here's some big additions. Of course, Lucas Chevalier coming to PSG, unsettled Gigi Donnarumma. Donnarumma now City's goalkeeper. That has gone final. Timothy Weah, U.S. international, comes over to Marseille. And a couple of blasts from the past. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang joining Marseille. And Paul Pogba, of course, signed a little bit ago, back in football for Monaco. Let's get you some outgoing deals. Skriniar going to go over to Fenerbahce. Ryan Cherki, you saw him with City, getting some minutes early on in their season. And then Jonathan Rowe, he's going to leave the league, and given the melee that happened with him and Rabiot, we talked about earlier in the show, he is out the door heading to Bologna. Some key storylines from the deadline day news, I should say. Enciso, League One club Strasbourg from Brighton, undisclosed fee there. You see Tottenham and their involvement, Rito Loam with PSG's Randall Kolo Muani. That's a big deal to say the least, heading to North London, as we mentioned before, Rabiot joining AC Milan. All right, boys, let's bring it in here. Stefano, JD, Nico, Download with you. PSG is now minus 2,500 to win the league. That means you have to bet $2,500 to win 100. This is beyond pennies in the dollar. So let's not talk about them. Let's go with Marseille. Can anybody actually compete with these guys, or is this kind of a wrap when it comes to legal?
No, nobody can compete with PSG, not right now. Marseille, it felt like before the before the season started, really, with their intent in the window, with the squad that they've put together. Sure, they had a shot. Now, you at least got to try to compete, right? Like, if you're any of the other teams, Olympique Lyons of the world, Marseilles of the world, you got to give it a fair shot. But Marseille have shot themselves in the foot to start the season. I mean, not only at the beginning of the season when they were man up and lost their first game, but then they lose to Lyon at the weekend. They have the whole row, no pun intended, in the dressing room. It's a disaster for Roberto De Zerbi and what they've tried to at least assemble to start the season, because they have a good squad. I think they actually had a really good transfer window.
Yeah, I second that. I really do believe that the additions they've made, tactical additions as well, in terms of just trying to strengthen with a lot of experience. They haven't just brought in players that, are trying to establish themselves or trying to make a name for themselves in Ligue 1. They talk about players that are well documented across Europe that can come in, and that's the only way that you're going to beat a PSG team. Because when it gets down to what we call the sweaty palms time, can they keep their composure? Have you got players in there that understand what it takes to win a championship? Unfortunately, as Nico just alluded to, the other part of that is that you need to start the season well, and they haven't. But I've got faith in De Zerbi. I've watched De Zerbi, of course, with Brighton, and we've seen him throughout the rest of his trajectory in terms of the manager. He's got it all. Can he just put it all together in terms of the right time? And accountability is another thing. I know he asked for accountability from his players, but can he ask for accountability from himself as well?
Right. And that's where I'm a little nervous with Marseille. We've seen him have success with young players, having success developing a lot of these young players to get the best out of them. With this team with Marseille, it was a team that was built to compete. And as soon as this season starts, it's all kind of gone wrong, and he loses control of the dressing room in that row with Rabiot and Rowe, and then they can't really recover from that, and they sell both players. Have they done enough to replace those players? Not very sure. They got in Pavard, which is a decent signing for them as well. It just seems like there was a lot of hope, a lot of optimism, and it all quickly went away as soon as the season started. And De Zerbi, I don't know if he has true control of that dressing room. He's yet to prove it, and I don't know how much time he has to prove it with the players he has.
Well, let's talk to PSG in this context. They are plus 650 to win the Champions League, third favorite. That's 6.5 times return on your money to repeat as winners in that competition. The big news for them is Chevalier comes in as a goalkeeper, Donnarumma goes out. They're not challenged much in Ligue 1, as we're all talking about. Does this affect them? JD, you go first. When they're playing in Champions League, to have a keeper that's now playing in that level, because Gigi was really good. last year in the Champions League. Is it effective having this keeper that doesn't really face much in league play, but then those big matches midweek, he's got to show up?
No, because you're going to look at the ability of what Chevalier is going to bring and its distribution, it's be able to control his team, almost being a sweeper keeper. It's an extra player on the field that is going to add another dynamic. And let's be honest, 99% of the games that PSG are going to play in this league, they're going to be in full control of. It's only going to be able to, can you handle the transitions and how's your concentration? It's those two aspects as to what will decide it. But we're all sitting there, nobody has turned around and thought any other factor apart from that is going to be a
but at the Champions League level, is it a different discussion we're talking about here?
It's a question that he has to answer, right, Chevalier? Because in the games that he conceded goals, which were this past weekend, and the Super Cup against Spurs, there were some questions about his goalkeeping, right? I'm not too sure about the game against Toulouse. He did concede 3 goals, but in the other 2 games, he didn't have to make a save.
That's the problem.
So he plays Real Madrid match day 1.
But are we looking at...
Sorry, that's Marseille. Never mind. Who does PSG play match day 1 in
They have a brutal schedule. They have a brutal schedule overall.
Atalanta to start, like... That's when we're going to know what type of goalkeeper Chevalier is.
But the odds are one thing, but then actually being able to demonstrate... I know PSG are the defending champions, but do any of you actually believe they're going to repeat it again?
I think it'll be very difficult for them to repeat. Yeah, no one repeats if it's not Real Madrid.
Historically, it ain't wrong.
Name me a team since 1994 that's repeated since Real Madrid.
We know Real Madrid are historically the only team that repeats, but I wouldn't know, regardless...
No, there are other teams, but it's Milan, but you have to go back to the 80s. Like, no one does it.
Regardless of their performance last year, I wouldn't have had them the favourites this year as well. So we've seen everything we've seen from PSG, and they've probably peaked.
I'll say this, and Enrique, and again, he's obviously watched more football than any of us here, but Luis Enrique took a huge risk here in allowing Donnarumma to go. And I understand that it's not the profile of keeper that he wants and how he wants to play, but if he's making decisions about his goalkeeper based on the majority of games that they'll play in Ligue 1, how is that going to work out in the Champions League when they don't have 85% possession, 80% possession in a game where the keeper is going to have to use his feet and then have to distribute? It'll be interesting when it comes down to having to stop shots the way that Donnarumma did in the last Champions League. 100%. How different that will be with Chevalier and net in the Champions League. It'll be interesting to watch.
In those knockout rounds, he had huge stops at critical moments.
Massive.
Gave him that championship. All right, we come back from break here. We will look at the biggest transfer sagas throughout this window. And also, we're entering a new era. Is the player empowerment era fully upon us? Welcome back to Scoreline, Transfer Deadline Day special here, presented by Zillow. These are some of the biggest sagas, if you will. I mean, Alexander Isak by far was the biggest, and it is resolved. Now he is leaving Newcastle. He's getting that move to Liverpool for a British record, $176 million transfer fee. Ademola Lookman is not so much. It seems like he's going to be stuck and staying at Atalanta. Yohan Wissa pushed his way out. He is now moving into that space that Isak vacated at Newcastle. Marseille had that dust up with Rowe and Rabiot, sent them both packing. And now Donnarumma now is going to be playing for Manchester City, not by his own volition. Lucas Chevalier came in. Luis Enrique wanted him there. So Donnarumma now will be playing for Pep and City. All right, let's get into some of these conversations, because Isak's situation was fascinating, because it wasn't until really the beginning of August that this started to come up, or late July, that this move and this discussion of him moving out came up, and he eventually found his way out. We see it in American sports all the time. The NBA guys are 3 or 4 years left in their deal. Deuces. Like, we are just finding their way out. So are we moving to a space, do you think, Nico, where we're going to see this in European football, where these guys are wielding a lot of power, because he had 3 years left on his deal?
Yeah, I think we are. But in this case specifically, I think both parties acted in bad faith. Newcastle reportedly, right, had told Isak that, yeah, sure, if the right offer comes, we'll envision you beyond this club. And Liverpool were kind of knocking on the door for the entire transfer window with that type of offer, and they wanted him to stay. And then I do feel like Isak put himself in a hostage situation purposely to really force this move. I think Newcastle also, on their half, thought that they could compete with the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City, and really at this point, they're not. And they ended up dragging this saga so far deep into the window that they had to kind of scramble to put their team together to make it competitive in the event that they lost Isak. So I think it's, I was going to say a lose-lose situation, but in the end, Isak got what he wants. And yes, I think this is a shift in momentum. Perhaps this window shows you that there is a junction point in how much power the players hold.
Can I just be honest? Sports is a business. It's a business. It's about maximizing your window. You just alluded to something about the NBA players. I seem to remember a franchise that's not too far from here, Philadelphia 76ers, having to deal with 2 players of the same issue, James Harden and Ben Simmons, both dealing with their contract disputes. And then what ended up happening? One goes and then projects his career and goes to another level, and the other one goes for his demise. That's the simple way of it. And all players recognise that. I've only got a small window to really recognise how good I can be. Alexander Isak would have been behind closed doors having that handshake and an agreement from a long time ago. So he's looking at that this is bad faith. And Nico just alluded to it. Bad faith is the word that we need to be recognising in the summer of this sports. I just saw it with Dallas Cowboys, right? Yeah. Bad faith, right? Yeah. Bad faith. Yikes. So at the end of the day, players have to turn around and look after their interests. And while Isak is here, he's thinking, well, I could stay at Newcastle, but look how long it's taken them to win one trophy in their history. Why should I stick around?
And I've learned, if one thing that we've learned from this transfer window, because before back in the day, I'm talking like 15, 20 years ago, a gentleman's agreement was a gentleman's agreement, right? That doesn't exist whatsoever at all. This window, I saw a player who was told by the club, we don't want you anymore, buddy. Get out of here. We'll loan you out. Go to Bayern Munich. And then at your convenience, once your player is injured and you have, despite that, a bunch of guys rotating through the door, Chelsea goes, oh, no. Now it's convenient to us. You know what? Come back when you're already in Bayern. Like, the gentleman's agreement does not exist anymore, and I think that's where the power shift is. I'm going to act, if you're going to act on your own self-interest and your business, then I'm going to do the same thing with me and my career.
And that's why it's difficult to get upset at the players for doing this. They are the assets. They have the value, and they know that. And you're seeing it now. It's, like you said, it's been happening in American sports for some time now. We just saw it in the NFL. It's been happening in the NBA for probably over a decade at this point. And in football, it's no different. It's difficult to blame a player for wanting the best move for his career when ownership is going to do whatever they feel is best for their club and for their pockets. So I do think that it's difficult to get upset at a player for just trying to find his way out. You can say, okay, you have to honor your contract. but they can terminate your contract. As we just saw, we're talking about players getting their contracts terminated over in Italy as well. It could happen anywhere. So it's difficult for me to get upset at a player for just wanting to make the best move for their career, what they believe it is.
Negotiations get drawn out into a saga for so long, and then when it works out, who remembers all of the drama? Who's talking about, by the way, how dramatic was the Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk contract extensions? They were trending topic #1 week in, week out.
All season.
Now, who's talking about them now?
Because they won't.
Nobody.
They won't. And there's never a win. No matter what anybody says, you're never going to please everybody because the fans are going to be upset, or the club's going to be upset, or the hierarchy, or football's going to look. You look at the Trent situation. How many times has Real Madrid come knocking on your door in your career?
Right.
How many times? You might only get that once in your life. If you don't accept that opportunity, it might not ever come again. Alexander Isak could go, stay, I'll play another year at Newcastle, could completely dive in terms of form. Liverpool won't be knocking next season, and then Newcastle won't be honouring that agreement.
And maybe Newcastle won't even get a fee for as much as they're asking for.
They're still winning. They're still winning from a financial perspective with the incredible fee that they're getting for him. They'll be able to reinvest that into their squad over the next 2 seasons.
If they would have acted a little bit smarter, they would have had that 130 million pounds or whatever it was, that record-breaking fee earlier in the window to go spend it aptly to be able to compete in the Champions League instead of having a season like the last one where they couldn't put all of their eggs into different baskets in their Premier League season domestically, took a nosedive
and scrambling. Exactly. It's just you're putting the responsibility on the players when really there's a whole board and a whole recruitment team that had enough information and enough time to put a proper squad and a proper plan together. You can't put it on the onus of a player.
And from Newcastle's perspective as well, like you mentioned before, they thought they were going to be able to compete with the Liverpools, with the Chelseas, with the Arsenals. They can't even compete with Manchester United. They lost out on Benjamin Šeško that way as well. So they severely kind of did not exactly expect it to go this way. They thought they were at that level because they were Champions League. When you have players choosing Manchester United over them who don't have European football. So I think they really kind of miscalculated how this would go for them.
They did get 2 players that are pretty good, though. They got Wissa, who's proven in that league, and Nick Voltemade, who's a desirable asset. So we'll see. They reinvested the money already. See if they're any good.
Look at that money, you know.
It's a lot of money.
Your arm is kind of forced into a desperate situation to spend a lot of money for players that Voltemade is unproven in the Prem. Sure, Wissa, I think, is a pretty good signing, but...
Only because you made the comparison. I've told you, and I said it on this set before, and I'll say it again. The Newcastle United fans and the New York Knicks fans live in the same room.
Oh, God.
They live in the same
room.
That's not where you want to be.
I say it again.
I have way too much to say to that. We got to go to break because at least Newcastle's competing at the top of the level for a couple years now. The Knicks, you just made it. You've been there for a week. We're last in the AFIS Conference Final 25 years ago. We come back, more of the Transfer Deadline Day special. The transfer deadline is closed for every European major league, with the exception of Spain. That happens at 5:59 Eastern Time. Nico Jackson is now part of Bayern Munich. Now, this was a dramatic situation. He flew on August 30th, Saturday, to Munich to finish that deal. That same day, that morning, our time, Fulham and Liam Delap gets hurt against Fulham. That loan deal collapses. Chelsea wants him back. They get Mark Yu, the guy they had on loan in Sunderland. They call him back to try to be a replacement. All this stuff happens, but we've now landed. Nico Jackson is going. He's playing for Bayern Munich on a $19 million loan fee with an option to buy of $95 million for the Bavarians. All right, let's bring it back into the studio here. Stefano, JD, Nico, and Dallin. Stefano, I'll start with you here. The situation now is finalized for both the club, let's say both clubs, Chelsea, Bayern, and Nico. Is this a good deal for everybody? Where do you net out on this?
I mean, it was a drama, right? A huge saga for this player and for Chelsea and for Bayern Munich. It is interesting how it all played out. I do think it is a positive move specifically for Bayern Munich. In my opinion, they needed depth. They are obviously the cleared away favorites for the Bundesliga, but their targets are Champions League this year. Their targets are to go and win the Champions League. And with the current squad that they have, I don't think they had enough depth. They didn't have anybody behind really Harry Kane that was a serviceable striker. They're going to need that with the amount of games that they play. And for Nico Jackson, it's an opportunity. He clearly was phased out at Chelsea, had his opportunities there all season last year. And if he wasn't going to get any playing time, he needs to go somewhere to play. If Bayern Munich is that spot, I don't know how many minutes he'll get. I don't think I think the party that wins more on this side is Bayern Munich for this deal, in my opinion, not so much Nico Jackson. He will get some playing time, but maybe not as much as he would have liked if he would have stayed in the Premier League or gone to a smaller club.
I mean, it's up to Nico Jackson. If you want to sit on the bench in Bavaria or if you want to sit on the bench in Kensington, it's just really up to you. But you're not starting at either place, so you might as well start somewhere that's a little bit warmer. And I heard the weather's a little bit better in Germany. So he's not going to replace Harry Kane. That's fundamentally because Harry Kane is probably the most informed striker across Europe. The consistency he's shown in a Bayern Munich jersey, I'm flabbergasted how he's still doing it at 32. But it doesn't shock me when you're world class. At the end of the day, Nico Jackson's probably looking long term. You see in the 5 years in terms of in the contract negotiation is if it does turn into a permanent deal later on down the line. So he's probably thinking to himself, look, I'm probably not right now Bayern Munich's number 9, but if I stay in the mix and if I do what I've done in Chelsea and show glimpses of what I can do, probably little cameos here and there. Hopefully, Nico doesn't agree with me though. Is this Nico or Nico Cram? What's wrong?
No, yeah. What's the option? I know you guys are very happy for Bayern Munich and for Nico Jackson. What's the option that Bayern has on Nico Jackson?
$95 million.
How much?
$95 million.
That's crazy.
I'm just telling you, he was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Where was he going to go?
You offload Nico Jackson for a potential $95 million when you bought him for 37 million euros, and he wasn't even good? That's a win for Chelsea in my book. Are you kidding me? This is extraordinary for both parties. I can't believe Bayern is actually entertaining this, seeing his track record at Chelsea. I'm thinking of the Nico Jackson that played at Villarreal and was actually decent, right? That's the Nico Jackson that you want. I don't know if you can get that Nico Jackson if you're constantly riding on the bench waiting for those seldom minutes when either Harry Kane is potentially injured or rested. It's going to be difficult for him to break through. I mean, he's obviously not going to break through a starting 11, but I don't know. They needed depth. This is a good piece. I can't believe what the loan fee within itself is like 22 million euros. You're already basically dropping down the price point to a 10 million euro difference to what you paid for him. So I think all parties walk away from this happy. I think Chelsea almost did him dirty in the end, but everybody ended up getting what they wanted. Bayern Munich ended up getting their player. Nico Jackson ended up getting away from Chelsea, and Chelsea ended up making a couple of million euros off of a player that wasn't even delivering for them.
Let's get into that, because a couple years ago, when Clearlake took over and Todd Burley's making his PR rounds, everybody was panning their decisions and how they were buying these players, young players, 7-8 years deals, amortization, all this stuff. Their business now looks like it's pretty good, that they're doing a lot of activity, but they seem like they're making money on young players and willing to ship them right back out if you're buying them. Where do you stand on Chelsea's business approach, which is different than most teams?
The purist in me hates it. I'm not going to lie to you. It irks me. And if I was a young player, I'm asking myself, why do I want to join the conveyor belt? I thought football was about getting minutes. It's not just about capitalising on money or opportunities in front of me, because they have so many players. They could field a football team. I'm not talking about our football. I'm talking about an NFL team. That's how silly silly it's becoming
54
now.
on that roster,
That's how
folks.
silly it's becoming now.
It's a perversion of excess.
It's just disgusting. It's disgusting because you're utilising the rules and you're utilising ambition of young players and using it against them. Football at this year, that age group between 20 and 24 is about when you're really homing in your skills. That's when you're really developing who you want to become as a player. And you're wasting it either on loan or trying to work out if I'm a first-team player or even becoming a first-team player like Nico Jackson and then getting sold out. Why sign a contract till 2033 if you're not even going to see out more than the majority of it? It doesn't make any sense.
So from the purest in you, I go to the purest in me, and I see them spending all of this money for a player that doesn't even work out, and they just go, on to the next, because they have, like you say, a conveyor belt. And I'm thinking of clubs like a Crystal Palace, for example. If they spend that type of money and that player doesn't hit, it could ruin the club, you know? And that's where we're at, the disparity within the Premier League, within some teams that have seemingly endless pockets and are trying to find the loophole around the system of giving these players 10-year contracts. And if one doesn't work out, sure, we can find a way out of there and make some money off of a transfer that didn't end up doing anything for us.
I think they just took it to an extreme level because we've been seeing this in football everywhere for years. Where
not this model. This model is
MLB
but what you were saying, but what you were just saying, right? That the big clubs can afford to miss on a signing and just move on to the next signing because they can afford it. Some clubs can't do that. That's been happening for a long time. The purest football fans are not going to like the way that they do business. But in reality, you can't get mad at the club. These are the rules and how they're set up, and they're finding loopholes and ways around it. My biggest thing is they seem to buy players sometimes just to prevent their rivals from buying players, right? And they send them out on loan. Now this club cannot have them because they're out on loan and under our control. And I think that's more of what their model from a financial standpoint as well. But that's more, I think, where it sucks to see it like that because you have good, solid players that want to play in the Premier League, get bought by Chelsea, think they're going to have an opportunity, then sent on loan and really never get that chance.
You can do what you want in modern football, but you need to deliver the results. Chelsea finished top 4. They won the Conference League as they should have. They won the Club World Cup. That was amazing on their behalf. And now it's the standard that they've set with this billion-dollar team. You got to follow up this season.
That's the thing. If this model works where their results start to match what their model is, it's not going to be just them doing it. Nope. Everybody else is a copycat league and a copycat world of sports. Sorry, JD. I can't even. What is that ring, by the way? We got to talk about that in a break. I can't see it over
It's the engagement.
Checks are clear. We come back. We'll continue with Scoreline. More transfer day deadline special here. Get the latest on what's gone down. There was drama on this transfer deadline day. Mark Gahey, the England international center back for Crystal Palace, we all thought he was going to Liverpool. Here's David Ornstein's latest tweet. Crystal Palace, despite deal sheets submitted for transfer to Liverpool, 25-year-old did the medical for LFC. An agreement reached between the clubs at $35 million with the center back on a 5-year contract, but Palace could not find a replacement. That is the story they're rolling with right now, why Gahey is not going to be moving to Liverpool. I was asked the guys how they're feeling, but in the break, I think we already figured it out. I had just, they popped it up, and then here we go. So that's the visual, boys. Would you like to put some words as JD starts to smack his hand out on the table? Well, why did you react like that? Stefano, clearly you're following it up.
Because we can sit here and we as analysts and as fans and we ridicule players. All summer I've been hearing the ridicule of players. Oh, who is he to turn around and push himself out of a club? Does he think he's bigger than the momentum? Does he think he's bigger than his football club? He's not bigger than anything. I've heard that all summer from a number of different players, from Trent all the way down. And then you have someone who's done the job the right way, has honoured the club all the way through, has given you arguably your biggest moment as a football club. In terms
he played yesterday too.
And scored a goal.
Yeah.
And you can see it was a crescendo moment for him, the way he celebrated with the fans to say goodbye. He's done it in an honourable way, done the pre-season, no grumbles. And I know Mark. He's an ultimate professional. And to see that move is taken away from him for whatever reason, when you've had the whole summer to work out a replacement, is nothing short of just shambolic. Like, why? Why would you derail a player from an opportunity to elevate themselves because you can't be bothered to go and look for something correct?
And if I'm Mark Gahey, why would I ever now sign a contract extension?
No. Yeah.
So you're about to lose him for free
And
anyway.
now you're going to lose him for free next summer because
if I'm going to walk on a free in a year, and now I'm staying with the club because the club itself couldn't figure out how to find a replacement for me. They were willing to let me go.
You let me travel to Merseyside.
The transfer sheet was in, but because you couldn't find a replacement for me, now I have to suffer the consequences of your poor administration when I handled everything to the utmost professional manner.
It's poor, man.
Moral of the story, I mean, it appears, right, that making a fuss and being unprofessional and staying home, refusing to train, refusing to play, it gets you the move.
It does.
And being nice guy might not get you the move. And that's now it becomes even more of a conversation that we were having last segment, where these players have the power to force their moves and do it. And you see why. Because if they just go about it and let the clubs handle it, they can get screwed in the end. And Mark Gahey now that's happening to him. Liverpool obviously left without their center back, but more importantly, the player was hitting his dream move and was an absolute just completely class about the entire situation, and he still gets messed up here in the end.
The last 24 hours, in his mind, he said goodbye to Crystal Palace fans properly. He scored a goodbye goal. He probably woke up this morning thinking about the Champions League theme music after coming back from international duty, and that's all been taken away from him because a recruitment department couldn't be bothered to find a replacement in the right time.
In an ideal world, yes, but I would imagine if you're a player, you're not thinking about those things until you sign the contract and the transfer is You're probably pushing it, but you're not dreaming of yourself playing in Champions League football. You got to get the contract some deal delivered before you start dreaming about those things. Knowing how these things happen, yeah, but the transfer wasn't done.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's already
You're probably pushing for it.
He's in the WhatsApp group. He's looking at real estate.
I understand the sentiment with the comment that you're saying where you want to go, because he's probably willing for this to get done, to get over the line. It was out of his hands at the end of the day, right? Because he did absolutely everything he could do for it to happen. But knowing how modern football is and knowing how dramatic the transfer window is, why would you put high hopes in your head before anything is official?
Nico,
right?
we're human, because we're all going to think about what's next. Like, we're excited.
If you're doing a medical, you're at the facility.
Right, you're walking around. You're on Zillow. You're looking at stuff.
He already had a Liverpool tab open on Zillow.
It's not official until it's signed, sealed, deliver, and it wasn't. And you can't get your hopes up until you have the contract. Until everything was in the balance until the very last moment. Nico. And he's a professional, and he knows that, and he knows the situation that the club putting him in. And they're sending all of those feelings that went through his head, the optimism, the hope of potentially perhaps playing in Champions League. He's going to remember that if the club ever comes any feet within his vicinity to say, Do you mind signing a contract extension so we can make some money off of you? In that sense, yes. But it's such a shame for the player.
I mean, we all work in a business where if our agent tells us this is probably going to happen and you think it's going to happen, you start thinking it's going to happen. But
I don't think anything has happened. Well, I think it's foolish to think anything is going to happen.
Guess what?
Until you
I'm an idiot. All right, I'm a fool.
Until you have the contract in your head. Bro, this is business. This isn't Disneyland.
All right, Nico, for a second, you telling me you wouldn't start picturing it?
Not until
done a medical. The 5 years deal is
that's not a final contract. Signed, sealed, delivered. The transfer is through. I know how this window works. It's not my first rodeo.
He's at Melbourne.
And it's probably not Mark Gay's either.
Around Anfield.
He probably got multiple, but he didn't put a Liverpool jersey on yet.
All right. Let me just advance this conversation a little bit because you alluded to it. The defensive issues, minus yesterday, they were great against Arsenal. They defended well, and Arsenal, you can talk about how they attacked, whatever. They defended well, much better than we've seen Liverpool defend. But the concerns were they need to reinforce defensively. They do not have that now. How much of a concern is this is that space now?
That is the biggest concern now for Liverpool. From an attacking standpoint, I don't think that there's much to worry about. Maybe just how they mesh and play and decide who gets onto the pitch and in what formation they play. They're playing a different formation because of some of those signings. And now only 2 in the midfield. They get overrun. It's happened in the first few games quite a bit. And they don't have that depth on that back line to be able to truly say, okay, we feel comfortable defensively in the Champions League, in the Premier League, and in all competitions that Liverpool will be in this summer. That is going to be the storyline now following Liverpool throughout, at least until January. If they decide in January, maybe go back in to try to get someone to fill that gap as far as depth on that back line. But this will be the storyline now for Liverpool, is how they're going to deal with defensive issues and how they're going to deal with the balance on the pitch moving defensively.
They're going after a defender in the winter transfer window.
100%.
Without a doubt. I don't know if that's Mark Gay.
And also, Konate, you mentioned Konate played much better. He also has a big injury history as well.
True.
So it's not just from a form perspective with Konate. It's also injury. He has had injuries throughout his entire Liverpool career. So that's the other thing to look at. Who replaces him? And
that's exactly what I was going to allude to, what Steph just said. It's not so much Konate's ability, it's more his availability. Right. Can he be consistent over 50 games? It's going to be a lot of pressure and constraint on that Liverpool team this year. They're going to have to travel a lot. They're going to have to do things this year that they didn't have to do last year because there's a target on their back now. And now there's one person who has to step up. It's Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
Joe Gomez is going to be given a lot of opportunities. You've seen Jarell Kwanzaa already leave from that squad. Joe Gomez now is definitively either the third choice or even probably looking at saying, I'm going to play a lot of games starting now in that Liverpool team.
Yeah, Konate didn't finish the game against Arsenal. Gomez did make a big play, broke up a play in the 6-yard box that could have equalized the game late. All right, we're going to go to break. We're going to wrap up the show here, the Transfer Deadline Day special, get the guys' final thoughts, and maybe any bit of news is still trickling in. Wrapping up the Scoreline Transfer Deadline Day special brought to you by Zillow. Alexander Isak is the headline, without a doubt, breaking the British record Liverpool did for the second time just this window. First Florian Wirtz, now Isak, $176 million transfer from Newcastle. Mark Gahey was supposed to join him at Liverpool. That deal fell through at the final minute. He will be staying at Crystal Palace. Nico Jackson gets his move to Bayern Munich. Anthony, now leaving Man U permanently, will be playing at Real Betis. And Gigi Donnarumma heading to Manchester City from PSG. All right, fellas, to wrap it up, I will let you go first, Nico. Just kind of big picture thoughts on the transfer deadline day and where we're at right now.
Liverpool and Arsenal had the two strongest windows you could ask for. Arsenal getting Piero Hincapié over the line. Last minute, he was there. I mean, Arsenal have a complete football team. No excuses now as to not win a title this season.
Yeah, I second that. I think the actual overall activity has just been drama from the moment the window opened to now where we are standing right now. So I think it's been an incredible window. I mean, the numbers are just blowing my mind.
Over $3 billion spent. Liverpool himself, $500 million spent.
I can only think of a couple of windows like this where I thought to myself, wow, that has really changed the trajectory of how we look at football. The 04-05, the Abramovich window was one that just automatically said football's never going to be the same. Roma should have had a few windows.
Real Madrid, they did the break in the transfer window twice. The record twice when they went for Kaká. They broke the global transfer record. They got Kaká and then Cristiano Ronaldo in the same window.
Yeah. So look, this one was definitely in the Hall of Fame in terms of windows.
Yeah, it's difficult to argue with Liverpool, Arsenal being definitely having the best window. I think if you look at maybe some losers from the window, Manchester City getting Donnarumma, I think, is big for them. Still not sure they did enough around their attack, in my opinion, for Manchester City. I think that they've kind of made a lot of decisions over the last few years that haven't panned out, and they haven't really replaced some of those players. It's interesting that City didn't go out and maybe try to do a little bit more in the window, especially at their wing positions.
Who's going to be the most active in the winter, quickly?
What name?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Who you're looking at? Back to Liverpool?
Get a center back.
And that's the thing.
Let's just keep spending.
It depends on what happens with Crystal Palace, but now Liverpool can go in January and look for Gahey and say, we're not going to pay more than $15 million. Or just wait till the summer and get him for free again.
Squeeze.
So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Maybe City.
City's going to have to hijack. We talked about at the start of the show. Liverpool is perfect record. 3 wins from 3 games. They haven't even played well yet. City's 1-2 right now. And looking 6 points up at them. City may be active in the window. Great time with you for Stefano, JD, Nico. I'm Dallin. More Scoreline next.